That's how we survive here. Our superior will.
Listen and subscribe to the Table of Truth on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Podcasts.
I hear my spiritual mantra.
Welcome everybody to Blerdlines. This is your man Cam. With me, as always, is
the other Cam squared, Cam to the umpteenth power,
as well as
you will kneel before Zod.
and as always,
Professor Dr. Doom. It's D. What's up, everybody?
And we have come together to praise and to make a plea for one of our favorite shows, Young Justice. And
woo!
As you've heard from the intro with the House of Zod, this season was pretty dope.
Yes, that was the choir of Zod. Yeah. Live at the Tabernacle of Zod.
Yes. And I was laughing because I'm in another geek group, bunch of black dudes, whatever. And so every week I say the exact same thing. I'm like, yo, I know you guys aren't watching Young Justice, but this is the best superhero anything that's on TV right now.
Amen.
Yes, said 2 times and it'll still be true.
And purely because I would say 2 reasons. One, the character development of the show is amazing. They've carried the same element that came over from Justice League Unlimited, where they can take any random ass character from the DC universe and make you care about them in one episode.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I care about Rocket? I don't care about Rocket. Now I care about Rocket. What? This doesn't make no sense.
Why do you care about Orphan? Why do you care about Orphan?
Yeah,
Onyx.
Literally.
Onyx.
Yeah, Onyx was in the.
Yo, they just pick out random characters and then they're just on some yo, we're gonna make you care about them because
you will care about them.
Yep, we're gonna give you one line of dialogue, 3 to 4 minutes of extra backstory, and then boom, now you're hooked. Right. And so I would say the one thing I would we were a little bit worried earlier on because the first 4 episodes were focusing on Mars and Connor and Miss Martian out there was actually kind of boring. But then literally that 4 episode boringness brought a bunch of greatness.
Yeah.
I would mention too, as someone who has not watched the later seasons and stopped at a certain arc of season 2, I've been hearing it so much on my timeline from you guys and other forums that I need to come back and catch this show. So I'm hearing a lot of good things. When I last left off, I don't know why I stopped watching. I think the season was over. We didn't know if they were going to bring it back, I think.
Yeah, and here we go.
And I totally forgot. And then all of a sudden, people was like, yo, this Young Justice is the truth. TROOF. So I'm like, all right, I'm coming back.
Yeah, and and I think one of the things that's great about Young Justice, this is just a small example, because the movies have depended on Batman for the last 20 to 30 years. And Bats only appears one time in this entire last season of Young Justice. He only appears one, and he doesn't say anything, but he's there. But that just speaks to the fact that we know he exists in the world. We know that it's set up so well and developed so well that we know that at some point we might get a story where we learn what Batman was doing, or we may not. It may just be a part of his ongoing history. But the season 4 Phantoms definitely set us up, and each season of Young Justice has changed the structure of the storytelling. Mm-hmm. We mentioned in season 2 where the beginning of that season is 5 years or something after season 1. So season 1, we left the characters their early teens or something like that. They're mid-teen. In season 2, they're basically late college, right? They're like college. High school, late teens. Yeah. But anyway, they match the story structure with where the characters are with where the characters are in their respective age groups. And I think that that's what makes each season unique in itself, but it continues that through line of great continuity, great character development, and great balanced plot action. And that's where we are, because this season, like I said, first 3 episodes totally unrelated. For the next 3 episodes, they gave us each little pods of arcs, but then it all bookend and paid off in probably the most rewarding 4 to 5 final episodes I've seen in television, period.
Agreed.
Wait, what season are they on right now?
This is the 4th season.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's subtitled Phantoms, for very good reason. And each season, again, they subtitle it really well, and you kind of wonder. This season had me wondering for a while, okay, where's the Phantoms? Where's it coming? I was guessing thematically, and you're still right on the themes, but when it really punches you what the Phantom is, it's one of those reveals that, again, you expect from live action. You don't expect to get that kind of experience and feeling from anime
series.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the thing, that's like their overarching character development and plot development was always on a top-notch tier. Because even if each they broke up this season to like 4 different tranches, roughly 4 to 5.
I want to say 4.
About 50.
Yeah, and each one, although they were separate, they all like link back to the overall narrative. So like you can they went off on a whole section, 4 to 5 episodes talking about Artemis and her whole struggle and but that still linked into the main narrative. Then they went on to Calder being out in Atlantis and in his whole situation, and it's still linked to the overall narrative. And I thought that was like super interesting. Same with Satana and all that. So again, we're using all these different characters that and these are like anywhere from B-ish characters to some are knocking at the door of an A-list character, but none of these are like the main joints. And I think to like what D'Angelo was saying too is like, yeah, when Wonder Woman or Superman or Batman show up, it's in a very limited capacity, and they're there literally just as in like just to let you know that they're there. And then, they're not doing anything that's going to push the narrative along. They're just like, they have a small piece and then it keeps it moving. But I think that's the one thing that Young Justice does better than most of the DC TV shows and the movies is like they let you know that these people exist in this actual universe. So we know that Batman's here, but Batman doesn't have to be here. So, Batman's not here, but we see Orphan, we see Artemis, we see, Huntress, we see all these we see all these different Bat family people, but knowing that, Batman's in this vicinity of the situation. Or, one of my favorite scenes was when Talia has little Damien as a baby, and he is super perceptive about everything that's going on.
Yes.
But we know this is Damien, Batman's kid, is supposed to be a badass Robin. But in this particular instance, he's just a kid, just chilling. And we're like, even though in that small moment you see still get a glimpse of Damien the badass that we're gonna see in the next, X amount of time jump, if you want to put it that way.
And that's also a great tease because that they show you Talia and Damien, but we haven't seen Bruce Batman interact with them. So you know that they already, that's the writer saying there's something here that we've yet to talk to you about. Just stay tuned, because obviously we know the lore. They're not going to change Damien's parentage. That's sacrilege.
Yep,
So,
exactly.
and I think one of the great things about the way they told the story is they're using the sort of in film cinema is known as Hitchcockian suspense, where the audience is given all the information. And we know everything, but the main characters only know pieces, only know what their perspectives are allowed to allow them to know. So it's fun to, as an audience member, to at the same time play your own investigation of how this is all going to come together. And then we get to the point where the characters actually sit down and say, hey, how do we all get here? And have to retrace the steps that the audience already knows. Yeah. So there's, again, speaking to just that level of narrative structure that they put into each of these seasons, to add to the experience, it's better than anything live action or animated that's going on, especially in superhero TV, and I would dare say even in movies, in terms of its sophistication and the level of storytelling that's involved, and especially the level of stakes and the way they commit to it.
I think you for me it was season 2 where they had the time jump, and I remember when I was late on the train. I think I want to say I started watching somewhere in the middle of season 2 after someone made me.
Yeah.
And I remember finishing season 1, like, oh, that was dope. You get to season 2 and they start you with a time jump that they don't explain.
Nope.
Mm-hmm.
At
And
all.
I remember thinking to myself, did I miss an episode? Like, did I start at the wrong spot?
Yeah.
And it took about an hour, like literally just like, because I had files that I obtained. And I'm sitting there trying to figure out, like, all right, this says season 2, episode 1. But and it didn't dawn on me, oh, they're doing a time jump, like if this was live action.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I finally just sat down, I was like, all right, screw it. I guess I don't have the episodes. I'll just start here. And then they revealed that Calder is actually, it has been undercover for a year, however long it's been. Robin is now Nightwing. That was the thing that threw me. I was like, is that Nightwing? Okay,
you know, when you say that, it's funny because you were the one that is always an avid. You were putting me on, what was it, the Russian version of Superman? That whole story, and Batman was a proletariat.
Red Sun.
So to hear you say you wasn't really on it, shockingly, that shocks me because you be on it. Like you be sending me stuff that I ain't never heard of on the DC level.
I was watching it real time when it first dropped, and the first few episodes made me feel like it was a kid. Like, oh, it's a kid's show. I'm not watching that. Like, it didn't, it didn't really do it for me. And my homie Kyle and my homegirl Amaris were like, "Are you out of your mind? You need to keep watching this show." And I was like, all right, you really, like, if it's like that, all right, cool. And in very short order, and I want to say, I kept watching, I started watching, and I was like, oh, this is exactly what I thought it was. It's just, this is like reading a YA novel. This is driving me bananas. And then it gets to the episode where the team has to sacrifice themselves in a no-win scenario.
Oh yes,
that Miss Martian creates, and I guess, and I think it was the shock of losing her teammate, the first batch of teammates that died in the no-win scenario, that sort of made the whole thing very real for everybody. And basically, the only way to finish the mission and snap out of the mental illusion, the telepathic illusion she creates, is literally the entire team has to sacrifice themselves. So they go down the line and just whittling off teammates, trying to thwart this one threat that's just impossible to beat. And that's because she created this no-win scenario in her mind.
Yeah.
And then, so that wasn't enough. That was a great episode. But then the episode after, you're dealing with the ramifications of that.
The trauma.
And you have Black Canary doing therapy sessions with the entire team.
And she's dealing with all of the things that and that's when you realize that, oh, we're not just seeing random shit. We're seeing world building.
Yes.
And I think to add to what Josh said, one of the moments that really made me, that was a great episode. And another moment to add on to that was when I think it was revealed that Vandal Savage was the one behind the light. When the light finally revealed, when it was revealed who was members of the light, it was kind of like, wow, this isn't just one DC supervillain. This is all of them. They're like extremely organized, like Illuminati style. And
I like that they did that because, like, even with Josh's point about that pivotal episode, because as the viewer, you're just dropped in. So you don't know what's going on. So you're just watching it, and you're like, "Oh shit, Green Lantern and Superman just got taken out." Okay, I'm assuming they got teleported into something else, and you're watching it, and then you're like, "Oh wait, no, they're dead." Like, wait, what the hell's going on right now? And then later, you don't know until like 19 minutes into the episode that they're in a simulation. So you're just like lost, just like they are. And then they bring you in, like, "Oh no, this is a thing." And then, like you said, over the next 4 episodes after that, everybody's in therapy talking about their experiences, what it was, why each person, why they're growing, why they weren't tripping, why they were tripping, why they were apathetic about it. And so now you're starting to grow with these characters over this quote unquote trauma that you've experienced and that they've experienced. It's true.
You felt the same trauma in that, knowing that there was no answer to what was happening. You saw Superman kill. First of all, when you see Superman kill, then you know that there's it's trouble for these characters.
You know what's funny? Sorry to cut you off.
No, it's all good.
The fact there's nothing young about superheroes in therapy. And you know who needs therapy the most is Batman.
and you know what? They make no shortage of making jokes about Batman's mental
100%.
And that's 100%. What makes it great, because one of the best moments is when Black Lightning takes him to task in the one of the seasons, when Batman, not to spoil it because I know there's still stuff you haven't watched, Cam, but Batman does one of his Batman-ass moves against the league.
Batman-ass moves,
which is in his mind necessary for the mission, right? And Black Lightning is like basically like, "No, motherfucker, like you can't just like do whatever you want anytime, because otherwise this doesn't mean anything. Like, you're crazy. Like you got problems, man. Like you're rich white man crazy, man. Like but it was
the beauty of it is Bats kind of just squints at him like,
but he knows, but there's a moment where he says something to Bats that resonates, because Bats drops the smug look and kind of contemplates what he said. Like, I don't remember exactly what he said about Bat's actions, but it was kind of one of those,
like a really lengthy monologue about, you know, what the Justice League is supposed to mean, and you know, if it's by any means necessary, we're no better than the bad guys, kind of thing.
Right, but that was when he gave like to the whole group. I'm saying he said something to Bats one-on-one that had Bats.
He G'd off on him. Yeah. He went on. Yeah.
And that's what I was referring to. But
okay.
But either way, to all the points, you have these are scenes that just further develop the world and engulf you in it. Like that moment where he goes off on Bats is earned. It's one of you're, as an artist member, you're as frustrated because it's not just a simple the way they've written the Light as antagonists is that they're not just pure evil. They are the inverse of the Justice League and what they stand for, but a different method of how to achieve it. And I think Vandal Savage being the main the main antagonist, the leader, it makes sense because he's sort of that representation of, you know, you either die the hero or you live literally him long enough to become the villain, or at least a misanthropic hero by proxy. Because he fashions himself as a savior, a champion of Earth, but he is very misanthropic. He hates the rest of humanity. So, you know, that sets up a really good dynamic and dichotomy between your superheroes, who are thought to be one thing, and your villains, who are believed to be another. Yeah. And they do that excellent job each season of showing more of Vandal's lineage of his long life, and how he's sort of just a great anchor for all of this stuff, and it all comes back to him, and it's great. It's just brilliant storytelling, man.
And it makes it gives Vandal Savage a more pivotal like marker within the DCU in general. Because like, you know, he's responsible for Atlantis. He's responsible for Dr. Fate. He's responsible for metahumans. Yeah. Like, he's the basis for all this shit.
What's beautiful though is it's clear that they did the Vandal Savage Starro episode as kind of like a filler episode. It's clear as day.
And it felt like a filler episode, but then you think back,
was brilliantly done. Yeah. And so it's clear. It's also clear to me that the writers or the powers that be are paying attention to what resonates with fans, because fans were like, "Yo, that was filler, but that was one of the best episodes of the entire series."
Oh,
and the writers went, "Oh, word?"
Yeah.
And they wrote more stuff based on that one episode.
But Josh,
and basically just filled in the whole Vandal Savage is responsible for literally everything you're watching right now.
Everything. And it makes sense. He's lived for literally half the time that humans have actually been humans and not Neanderthals or what came before. But Josh, remember the Star Wars episode was filler a little bit, but remember they had the whole episode in Atlantis before that where they had Starro, and then Vandal Savage they used in the finale of season 1 the Starro chips for the mind control. So that was looping back to the whole
to the season finale,
to the whole first season, in which that's why. But they downplayed it. They didn't say, "Oh, remember when this alien was that low?" They were like, "You saw it. You had to watch it. You had to be there." And that's what's great about it.
I mean, there's so much wholesome goodness in this series. So my homie, who will be referred to as Female D, both in name and in professorial academic knowledge. I've been trying, I got her to watch it, and she couldn't latch on because the young adult thing was just too heavy for her. D, my love, if you're listening to this, I hope you're hearing all of this praise that this show is getting, and you give it another shot, because you need that show in your life. As someone who is also a writer, like my man D'Angelo here, and is at least as learned as he is in the arts of the written word. When it comes to entertainment and fiction, I implore you to try to watch this show again. Please, man.
Yeah, and I think
that's it enough.
Those early episodes, if you approach it as, okay, this is world building, these things seem minuscule, menial, not important at the time, then appreciate the fact that later those things book in what we were originally seeing and just adds and expands the overall the myth building, the storytelling. I think that makes it worth it, but it is hard to get through that point. But yeah,
I had the same problem.
I did too. It's total world building. But now I'll say this: if I go back and rewatch it, I like it more.
Yes,
true.
You
100%. I would say that if those first 6 episodes, 6 to 8, first watch, it's like your typical kind of like cartoon show, teen kids doing their thing. But like now with the context of everything else, and you see it, the world building they were doing in those first 6 to 8 episodes was very pivotal to the whole thing. Because as I was watching it,
fellow academic telling you that you should watch this show. I'm telling you, you need this in your life.
And I think Young Justice did a great job of carrying over Justice League Unlimited's level of character development when they brought into their narrative. And again, Justice League Unlimited was really dope because legit, there are so many characters in the DC universe. We don't know all of them. And they would literally just throw a bunch of 5 of them, throw them into an episode, and now by the end of the episode, you care about this random, the two gun kid or whatever the hell they random.
The Question or Booster Gold. I mean, who would have thought? I never thought I would care about Booster Gold or The Question. And watching Justice League Unlimited, I actually believe now, especially watching now, I'm thinking man, those two would make good modern adaptations. Like Booster Gold, we got a pretty good premise behind him, being a guy from the future with future tech or whatever. And The Question, maybe not just because he's kind of like Batman without the mask, but with the mask of a blank face. He's like the classic noir detective. So
Gumshoe.
Really, Gumshoe, exactly. You could really have fun with like an HBO Max series.
Oh, definitely.
With the question and have it be the ground floor DC world building. If you're still gonna do a DC cinematic universe, I don't know what it is right now.
No, and you're right though. I think that's and I think for Young Justice again, they did a really good job of pulling in the random different characters into it, and again. Now in the season 4, it wasn't without its faults. Like they totally sidelined Beast Boy, who was a pretty big pivotal character in the previous seasons. They gave him a whole story arc that was kind of depressing, kind of annoying. No, they paid it off, and it was actually pretty decent. But they do have their and then when they
they hit on it a little too long.
Yeah, 100%.
They did.
But then when they did add in new characters, they made these new characters have something interesting to do. So Forager, awesome new character. You don't know anything about Forager in season 3. By the end, you're like, I love Forager. Forager is amazing.
Oh man, Forager, man.
And then season 4, they just take Forager and make him even cooler. So I think those are those things where it's like, again, it was a great example of introducing a new character, making you give him an actual full life of like depth and actual like worth, and then using him in a way that would add the overall narrative. So then in season 4, when he does show up, you're like, of course Forager's there, because that's what Forager does. And then
Forager is Forager.
Forager is Forager.
Yes.
Yo, let me ask the group two questions. First 2 seasons of Marvel's Greatest Adventures, or Marvel's Avengers, excuse me.
Oh, Earth's Mightiest Heroes?
Yeah, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. The first 2 seasons of that, or this.
Ooh. Whoa.
Well, I'm not even gonna even pretend like I have a. It's totally this Young Justice.
Because the Earth's Mightiest Heroes was really, really good.
Yeah,
before the movies took over.
Was terrible.
Yeah.
Like they just plowed through all sorts of story at a rapid pace.
I would say that to Josh. To Josh's credit, like I was like, Earth's Mightiest Heroes is good, but they plowed through so many stories in such a quick fashion. It was still enjoyable, and it was enjoyable to watch, but it was like you didn't really get a time to like really digest like one story arc, and all of a sudden, boom, you're into another one, and you're booming into another one, and it was really good, and they did it well. But you're right. If they would have took those 2 seasons and stretched it over 4, it would have been amazing. But because they were plowing into a lot of stuff, and I would say for Young Justice, the overall arching narrative for all 4 seasons is really good. And when they stick on something for a season, it's a very specific reason, and the payoff is always good. I think that's the one that they did a good job for.
Because this season we got a whole new antagonist added, with the light still being the background sort of overarching, but then also Darkseid is lurking out there, and you already know that at some point he's the biggest, the baddest of them all, in terms of DC villains, and powerhouses. So you already, that's the thing about Young Justice, and that's why we're pleading for another season, is because we know that the conflict, the ultimate conflict that we're gonna get is when Darkseid steps in and decides, okay, to borrow a phrase from his Marvel counterpart, fine, I'll do it myself. When he and it's like, okay, I'm done waiting. I know where the anti-life equation is. I am going to get it. Anybody in my way, Omega beams in every which direction you want it.
Let me ask one more question. This is a personal thing to me. Is Lobo anywhere in these 2 seasons?
Oh, dude!
Only in the third. The 30 is not in the
third, and it is amazing.
Thank you. That's all I asked.
Amazing.
I'm gonna watch
and then again, it goes back to the same thing where it's like when they decide to use characters, they use it very deliberately and for a very specific reason. So when Lobo shows up, it's not because Lobo just shows up. There's a very specific reason that he's there for, and he's awesome, of course, because it's Lobo. And I like that they do that because it's like, again, I go back to they do what Marvel does so horribly is it's like Marvel. I worked on the Marvel website. They have 3,457 characters. That was back then. Probably have more now. But they have so many characters that they can pluck from obscurity and give them life and do whatever they want. The one thing I would say for Young Justice and Justice League Unlimited, they do really well, is they really do pick random ass characters, throw them into a narrative, but then make sure that they're there for a specific reason. So when Lobo shows up, you're like, oh, you're happy because you're like, oh shit, Lobo. But he's there for a very specific reason. And when he shows up again, he's also there for a very specific reason. You're like, this is dope.
And he folds well into the mythology. I mean, this is so random, but I laughed at his dialogue because he had an insult for he had what was he? He had an insult for literally everybody in that Keezy Femme. And like I love when Artemis threw it back at him and she's like, she calls him a Keezy Femme or something like that, or you can't do nothing with these Keezy Femme or something she said. But like the bastages, like he had like a curse word for everything that wasn't an actual curse word, and it was brilliant and it worked well. It wasn't like here listening to people say frack, you know.
Yeah,
wink, wink.
exactly. and also,
hold on. Let me throw this out there. If you want just a quick distraction for 2 seasons, watch Krypton, the live action series. It starts out looking like it's not going to make a whit of sense. That lasts for 1 episode. Everything starts to fall into place literally immediately after that.
What is this on?
It
was on
Sci-Fi, so it's probably like Peacock.
On Peacock, yeah, you can probably find it on Peacock.
Yeah.
Or may actually be able to find it on HBO Max because it's technically
it's a
DC property and the Warner property. So
oh, okay. I thought I was gonna have to get on the open waters. And
in fact,
get on my pirate. Aye, Captain.
No, but you probably can get it on. I'm pretty sure it's on HBO Max because I think it is.
Yeah, you're right. You might be right.
In the DC's collection, but Josh is right. It's a solid 2 seasons of. It's interesting. I don't like Superman that much. His stories boring, very boring, too powerful. I don't buy it. White alien comes from another world. He's white and he's powered by the sun. You know, I don't buy it. But either way, Superman's character is really not. It's like being in the background and secondary. It works. All the actors were really, really well, and I think that show just was on Sci-Fi. That was the problem. If it was on, for example, if DC Universe had launched it, and then when HBO Max launched, like Titans, it would still be because honestly, those 2 seasons are better than what Titans have done in this 3 seasons. Because Titans each season is a perpetual letdown. You know, it's
almost good every season.
Yeah, and to mention that, you know, Titans, it's just sad that Young Justice is literally. Titans should be the live action Young Justice.
Should be blowing the doors off of everything. Yep,
great cast, visuals are great, but
when Akiva Goldsman writes an episode, it's cool. But that's
and I would say for Titans, every time I'm like, hey guys, is Titans as good as Young Justice? And you guys are like, no. I'm like, all right, so I'm not gonna watch Titans then. It's literally what it comes down to. Because I mean,
I don't have any motivation to continue watching Titans after
after last season when they completely botched the Death in the Family storyline, and not just botched it, like literally took it, ripped it up, and then used like Elmer's glue to put it back together. It was bad, you know, it was bad, and it was just the way they did it that made it bad.
That's whack.
You know,
there were a couple of bright spots. The dude who played Scarecrow was amazing, despite being given garbage.
That's Vincent Kartheiser, the guy that plays. He was in Mad Men, but he also Before that was Connor, Angel's son, in the Angel series. Yeah,
nice. Oh, he plays Scarecrow. Okay,
he plays Dr.
He plays
Craig.
the hell out of Scarecrow, bro.
Dope. He's a good actor. He's a really good actor.
He is.
It's the one shining thing in this past season that if you were to venture to watch, that's the thing you're watching for. His performance.
Do not watch.
So I would say the other thing too is it's like, so right now they're really waffling between giving Young Justice another season or officially saying that. I think the rumor mill is like it is, but like there's no official.
They need to stop playing.
Yeah, they already canceled. Was it Time Traveler's
the time
wife, husband, or whatever? Yeah. So they clearly got some
Time Traveler's wife.
Yeah.
They cut that.
That came out like 2 weeks ago. So clearly they got a little extra budget just laying around. So I'm hoping.
Well, they also probably thinking like, do they really need that? I mean, House of Dragon is next month. They got Westworld going. That's gonna go into that. They pretty much got some heavy hitters right now, and probably gonna get a few more coming. So. And then that's not an easy novel to adapt. I mean, there was a movie made for it, Tank too. So, it's just one of those things that they're probably just not going to be able to adapt that into anything. Not a TV series, not a 2-3 hour movie. They said that about Dune, and Dune has had 3 adaptations now, and I love all 3 of them. So, maybe there's hope for the Time Traveler's wife. But
I'm curious. So but I think that's the thing I'm curious about where HBO wants to take it to, because it does have a strong following. It has pretty decent ratings from what the streaming people will tell you. That's taking it with a grain of salt. But I think that's the other aspect of it too, where it's just like you have something that's a strong narrative, amazing character development, good lineage. Room to grow to do literally whatever they want to do,
and a rabid fan base.
So I really hope
a couple movies, like a couple Young Justice side movies to
I'd be here
those. Huh?
I'd be here for that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like those years that they gapped in between. Like apparently that Catwoman the Hunted story is set in the Young Justice continuity.
Oh.
So,
I know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that. And I read, I was reading on Young Justice, like just the total production and where it's going. And it said, that Catwoman, the Hunted series is apparently based on the Catwoman, the Selena Kyle of the Young Justice animated TV series.
So you ain't said nothing.
She's never appeared, I don't think.
You ain't said nothing but a word. Now I got to watch it.
Yeah, I'm gonna check it out too to see what kind of loose, because they're saying it's like more like spiritually connected, so it's set in the world, but her involvement is obviously not. She's might do some work for the light or be inadvertently
interesting
or something like that. But I was surprised to learn that movie out of all the animated things. Oh, I know what it was. I was looking at what their list of their new DC animated universe films are. So it starts off after Dark Apocalypse
War.
Yeah. It's Superman, Man of Tomorrow, which is a good one. And then there's the 2 Batman movies. The one that's set in the 70s, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
That one it's interesting, but those are standalones. And then the one, the Justice Society, that's the next one continuity wise. But the Catwoman one is listed as a standalone, but it lists in the box that it shares continuity with the Young Justice animated series.
All right, I'm with that. I might check it out now because I'll
mess with that.
So now, like bringing it back to the end, I think where do you guys want to see Young Justice go from here? Now that we've gotten to a little bit of glimpses of what's the next, they teased their season finale and how they did that, wrapping up the stuff that was coming from before. And again, the season finale was wrapped really, really well. Like they any little thread that was like kind of out there, they clipped it, made sure everything was all wrapped neatly, and easily introduced the next quote unquote big bads for the next season. So I mean, where do you guys want to see it go from here? D'Angelo, well, you first.
I think I want to see. Honestly, I think if they do renew it for a 5th season, I think this should be the final season. And I think based on what we saw in that scene, I think it's time to move into in-game territory where Darkseid, we're starting to get more of it because we've gone through the gamut of everything that builds up to that. And I think leaving on that with those two characters, especially one of the two characters, we know that where Darkseid sort of goes with that. And so I think, and there's nothing beyond her, like you got her, like you can't get past that. So I want to see in-game stuff. Like I want to see it. I would even love it if it's Young Justice Apocalypse or whatever, like the last season, just because I think we don't need more of the consternation between seasons of whether it's going to be renewed or not. And I think a solid 5, they get 26 episodes, so you got more than enough episodes. A solid 5th final season where we get the ultimate payoff of everything we've been building up to.
That'd be dope. Josh, what are you thinking?
I selfishly, I think they could do it as long as they want to do it. I'd be fine with wrapping up this particular with the Light storyline and the sort of pivot towards Darkseid. But there's other threats that they could write about. Like I'm fine with whatever they do. If this is the last season, if the next season is the last season, I'd be fine with it. Like I think it's set up to go out that way if they want it to. But I'd be equally fine if they decided, you know what, we got renewed for another 3 seasons. Yay, I'm watching. I'm there. I don't think they have to. It's just me being purely selfish, as this show is arguably the best. That you put it perfectly at the top of the show. This show is the best written anything out there, live action or animated. Yeah. So, if there's more of that, you're not going to get a complaint out of me.
I agree. I think the DC world is wide enough to where it doesn't need to end with the 5th season. And I think, just like Josh says, that's selfishly with me loving to see a beginning, middle, and solid ending.
Yeah, solid ending.
Not have something sort of go on and on to where it's overstated.
No, you're right. You're right. I think
that's enough material to,
I think that's the one thing I would say too. I was like, it would be dope if they're like, yo, next season's our final season, so then they have a nice complete bookend of what they want us to accomplish. But they do have the legs to like go as long as they want.
They got
and also too, I mean, we say this all the time where I'm like, if you're writing for any DC EU movie that's live action and you have not watched Young Justice, that's just writer malpractice.
It is. I couldn't have put it better. It's like negligence of the pen.
It makes no absolute sense. Like you have a cartoon that's literally eating everybody's lunch with a lesser budget, and even one episode shows you better about how they do their character development and how they do a lot of their narratives, way more than just a lot of the live action stuff. And so I got to, and as my final word, I've gotten through a whole episode talking about DC. I didn't talk about Snyder, so good job, Cam.
Until now.
But
so much for that.
I gotta call it out. I need to give my pat in the back.
Much for that streak.
But I think that they did a good job again, of just, I go back to the same thing, man. They take like random ass characters that you literally do not care about, don't think about on a regular basis, not even like. And like when I would actually highlight one episode where I actually watched the Green Lantern CG show, which not many people did. Not, animation wise, it wasn't that great. Story wise, it was really cool. But they brought one of the characters from that. There was an original character into Young Justice, and that episode actually was really dope. And it actually furthered the narrative. It established, what's his name as another big bad, and it's just one of those things where it was just like, yo,
what's his name?
Crap! Why am I forgetting his name? The big bad dude in the chair.
My guy, Metro.
Metron. There you go. Yeah.
Okay.
That's D'Angelo's. D'Angelo's alter ego. So D'Angelo's alter ego, Metron.
D'Angelo in cartoon form.
Yes, 100%. He is literally the worst, but in all the calculated ways.
It's for the science.
But they brought to show the devilishness of this character. They brought in a character from a previous series, Razor, and they brought him in, and it actually worked really, really well. And it furthered the narrative. It added in a new character that if you were a fan of the old show, you saw them and you got excited. If you had no idea who this character was, it didn't take away from it. It just added to the narrative. Yeah. And again, it was just a great example of using stuff from the old that quote unquote might have not have worked and bringing it in and making sure everything had the same type of continuity without being cheesy or heavy-handed or anything like that. And so
what was great about that inclusion was the fact that they could weave it into the world and it just worked. You know, I like how after Razor, after he chases, they defeat Metron and they send him back to his lab. Orion and I was it Bear? I can't remember which one comes and they're like, because they destroy like a statue of Allfather or whatever. And he's like, Orion's like, so yeah, what's up with all this? What happened? And he goes to explain. He's like, yeah, so Metron and Orion's just like, oh, Metron. It's all good.
Say no more.
Say no more. Metron. And so they have moments like that, even in the midst of like the most high stakes. And it never undercuts anything, but it always reminds you that you're in this world where even to the point that now Superman often says the league now quotes the kids their slang. Like now they'll say things like whelmed or like
the mode.
And they'll say it while another leaguer is next to them and they'll be like, what? And they'll be like, I think it's just something I heard the kids say, and just keep going. Like it's just a really, really good detailed sprawl world. They built it up, and like Josh said, it could keep going if they wanted to because of just how much detail is there. They just nothing is random and nothing is wasted.
And they do a really good job because I mean, even with the relationship between Kilowog and Razor in the old show was actually was a big part of the show. Like this is like kind of like very like curmudgeon type of character, and Kilowog is a very like boastful but also warm and loving type of figure. And so at the end in this episode, they have an embrace, which is like pretty hilarious because it shows like the passing of how these two characters have come together, like they're actually like friends or whatever. But like you're right, I like that. The use of language is one of my favorite things in this, where it's like when someone says they're feeling the Aster and it's not the people that normally say it, it makes it even funnier because you know where they got it from and it's a callback. So again, going back to what D'Angelo said, it just fills out that world and that narrative where you feel like this is a fully lived in world that everyone is in it. Whether it's Batman, whether it's Superman, whether it's Wonder Woman, whether you see them or not, these kids have made an impact on the full world of these
universe,
superheroes, in this universe, and it makes it really, really good. So, So we, as you can see, we enjoy this show.
I think this is like Blerdlines' top show after The Expanse, right? Like about
cosign.
100%. It's
No
probably our favorite.
That should tell you that in itself should tell you where we stand with Young Justice. So for the powers that be that's listening, give it that 5th season. If it's the final, we'll take it.
Yep.
But we need one more because they deserve the opportunity to finish their story.
100%. And I think that's the main thing where it's like, and all the folks that haven't watched it and they're a little distracted, like, yo, check it out. Let us know that we're wrong or right. Either way, we'll take it. And we'll go from there. But once again, this is Blerdlines, and we are out.
Bring back Constantine. Peace.
You know,
the one character that's actually not in Young Justice,
right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there you go.
And that's an interesting point that he hasn't showed up, but you get the sense that he does exist out there somewhere.
This is true. There is true. All right, we out. Really out for sure.
Peace.
Peace.
Brace.
For the house of solid.